right, guys, we are here today with Craig Curelop, who is the house hacking guy from BiggerPockets back in the day. It's funny, I remember hearing Craig way back super early in my real estate journey, and now he's a good personal friend of mine. So it's always kind of funny when, like, I don't know, you put people on a pedestal when they're on a podcast, and then you meet them, and they're like, "Hey, we're dudes. We're
We put our
just,
pants
just,
on
just like me."
you.
Just dudes doing things, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you sort of have your claim to fame, I guess, being like the house hacking guy. You built a brokerage with kind of that as your niche. And you wrote the book for house hacking for Bigger Pockets, but obviously you're a much more dynamic entrepreneur and real estate investor than that. So super excited to have you on the show, man. I would love to dive into what exactly you're doing with your business. So I guess for anybody that hasn't heard about you, give them like let's like look at what your business looks like right now, and then let's go into what you sort of did to get there.
Yeah. So right now, as we stand, kind of like Q1 of 2024, I've got a team of investor-friendly real estate agents, largely in the Denver market, but also expanding up into Coeur d'Alene, Northern Idaho area, as well as in Southern California. And so got a team of agents here, got a handful of investment properties myself that I've accumulated, many of which through house hacking, but probably half through house hacking and half not through house hacking. And so, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at today.
Cool. Awesome. And then, so I guess going further back, you got involved with Bigger Pockets and all those sort of things. I guess, were you doing real estate before that, or like what was your sort of origin story to get into the zone you're currently in?
Yeah, so it kind of all started with a job that I hated, which is probably where a lot of people are now or were not too long ago.
Mhm.
And I found real estate as kind of the tried and true way out. And so I found Bigger Pockets by just reading some books and listening to the webinars and the podcast and all that, and was like, okay, this is it. I'm all in. And so I went ahead and I applied for real estate jobs all around the country, mostly in Florida, actually, making like $8 an hour back when that was the minimum wage. And I applied to 249 jobs in Florida for $8 an hour after making over 100
Wow.
after making over 100 grand a year for like my first 2 years of my career, just because I wanted to get in. But I was fortunate in that I applied to one job in Denver at Bigger Pockets, and I got that one, which was a much better salary and exactly where I wanted to be. And so I spent a couple of years at Bigger Pockets, and at the time, Bigger Pockets was not kind of the behemoth it was today. There was probably like 20, 25 employees, almost all of which had real estate or had passion for real estate. One of the only people that did not have real estate on the team was the founder at the time. But nonetheless, he was really, obviously he knew a lot about real estate. And so I was around those guys for a long time. And kind of just befriending, Josh and Brandon and Scott and those guys, they obviously got me into investing in real estate. So I bought my first property, within a couple of months of moving to Denver, and then continuously bought every year that I lived there.
Yeah, there you go. And so that was all doing the house hacking strategy, right? I mean, I think I remember hearing you talk about how you would like live in a living room and have a curtain. Were you at that extreme of a level?
Yeah, that's where a lot of people know me as the start. So yeah, I mean, at the time, right, the only way that house hacking people knew about it was to buy a duplex or triplex or a quad. There wasn't all of this different Airbnb your basement and rent by room and all that. Like, I mean, there was, but no one knew about it. And so it was the duplex thing. So I found a duplex, and the only way that I could make this duplex work, because like this was the time where multifamilies worked last year, but not this year kind of thing. Like the market was increasing. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to make it work. And I figured, hey, at the time I was 24, I was single, and I was like, you know what? This is going to be a fun start to my story. And I mean, I'm willing to do it because I just know it's for a year and it's going to give me, a leg up and do things that other people aren't willing to do.
Totally. I mean, it makes sense. You said I'm 24 and I'm single. I want to stay single. So here we go.
You and Scott Trench must have been boys, because like he's also, I don't know, I see you guys a lot in the similar senses. And I read his book and it made me feel bad about buying everything that I've ever bought in my life. I can't remember what was that book called?
Set for Life.
Set for Life. I was like, gosh, damn it.
Yeah, Scott has become a good friend of mine, and we're still in touch. And yeah, we've got a lot of the same mindsets. And I don't think that's by coincidence. He was my first real estate mentor, whether he likes it or not, whether he knew it or not. And that's kind of the funny thing too, is that your mentors oftentimes don't even know your mentors.
Yeah.
You're mentoring them.
That's true. Yeah. So started with the house hack, did a couple properties like that. What transitioned you into the agent sort of direction as opposed to just being like a full-time investor?
Yeah. So I got my license actually in 2018, which is much earlier than people realize. And it was initially just to do my own deals. I denied a couple people who wanted to work with me as an agent because I wanted to be like all in on the investor side of things.
Mhm.
But then one of my good friends asked me, and I like enjoyed hanging out with him a little bit more than the other people that may have asked. And so I was like, all right, man, I'll help you buy a house, whatever. And so I went in, I helped him buy a house, and then I had a $10,000 commission check. And I was like, oh, that was an easy $10,000 commission check.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had more people kind of asking me about helping them buy house hacks in Denver. And I realized that there weren't really any, maybe there were one or two, but they didn't actually invest themselves, like investor friendly agents in the Denver market. And so I kind of just tried to own that niche. And in 2019, I started doing, like, after being a little bit more intentional, I started doing pretty consistently like 2 deals a month. And at that time, you could do that math, I was making about 20 grand a month. And, that was like 3 times my salary at BiggerPockets.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, okay, like I'm doing this part-time. And I didn't even know that was good. I actually talked to David Green and I was like, yeah, I'm thinking about leaving, but I don't know if I can because like I'm only doing 2 deals a month. And he's like, if you were doing 2 deals a month, you would be the best agent on my team. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm better than I thought I was. Right.
Yeah.
And so then I decided to like do a little test run where I essentially took a $0 paycheck from BiggerPockets for 3 months by just investing. I just like put all of my paycheck into a 401k. And in 3 months, that would have essentially maxed out my 401k. And I figured, hey, if my personal checking account is larger after these 3 months, then I'm probably pretty safe to quit. And if not, then whatever. I maxed out my 401k and I'm pretty darn close. And so sure enough, after those 3 months, I was good to go. And I put in my notice and that was that.
That's good logic. So
Yeah.
I got a question for you on why we're talking about the agent stuff. What would you call an investor-friendly agent? Because what I think of an investor-friendly agent from what I've seen is it's like some young person that's willing to put a bunch of offers out there that are lowball offers and work their ass off for one deal once in a while.
No, that's not what
Yeah.
we're trying to do.
Yeah.
So an investor-friendly agent is someone that invests, number one. And number two, can look at properties from the investment lens and be able to help you more than just help you find a deal. Typically they're on the market, which is kind of, the dark hole that you guys don't believe in, but but on the market properties and figuring out how to make them work in a way to cash flow. And the great thing is like, you don't need the best deal. Like, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you guys about who gets the best deal. Like, you guys probably get better deals than us, but you work a heck of a lot harder for them.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you're just starting out and your deals, I suspect, are a bit more complicated. And so when you're just starting out, I think it's wise to just buy something, have it make sense, do it kind of the easier way, kind of have that be your training wheels, and like a house hack just makes sense. And so we would help find the deals, help analyze them, help them, find tenants, put the listing up, give them any contractors needed, recommend certain rehab projects that they could do. What's the biggest bang for their buck to increase the rents, add bedrooms, update bathrooms, some stuff for like remediation. How do you, like the little things like putting the bathroom fan and the light on the same switch so there's no mold, like stuff that like a regular agent probably wouldn't know about. There's probably like 100 of those little things that we could go through and just be like, this is what you want to do to the house to, one, increase rents, and two, prevent further maintenance and other issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Increase revenue, reduce costs. That's the goal.
Bingo.
Yeah. So I guess for all that additional assistance you provide, do you like have extra costs associated with it? Or are you just, actually doing your job as an agent and, earning that $15,000 to $20,000 commission that you're going to make from buying that house by, providing value and not just doing 3 forms and sending the person on their way?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, right? Is a lot of agents get a lot of crap for not providing value. And in some ways it's true. But yeah, exactly right. It's like, in the game has changed where it's like a lot harder. It gets harder and harder, which is good. Competition is fiercer. But yeah, we actually provided value of like, we can walk in a house and actually explain things to you. Also, we're going to negotiate and write the contracts and do what a typical agent would do.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the additional, plus for working with us.
Sure. Yeah, I think the value that gets that I see from agents, like the most value is the negotiating tactics. And in your case, when you're trying to help somebody buy an investment property, is like, what is the best ROI of your money when you put money into this deal? How can I make the offer so compelling that the seller wants to go with us, but it also structures the deal on your side that your return on cash or your cash on cash returns or whatever it is you're negotiating on is in their best interest.
100%.
Yeah. So you did that obviously by yourself for a little while. How did you transition to building a team? And we obviously have a wholesale off-market business, but we have a team that we've built out around that. I would imagine a lot of the fundamentals about building an effective realtor team are similar.
I would imagine, and I think that we probably have gone through a lot of the same struggles. And so, again, it started off with just me, and I did like 100 deals my first year, right? Like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and it was a perfect storm of it being 2020 with I couldn't travel or do anything, and nothing was open, so all I could do was work with COVID, and then obviously with the low interest rates and everything like that, like things were just good. But at the end of that year, I was like, man, like I could maybe do this for a year or two and right off into the sunset, but that wouldn't really leave anything. So, and also I want to like the challenge of building an actual business. And so I started to hire a couple of agents under me, and I started passing my clients off, and they would lose them. And then I would say, you know what? I don't want to have agents anymore. And then I would go back to just being an agent myself. And then I would be like, and I went through that cycle of like passing leads off to not passing leads off for about 6 to 8 months. And then I was like, finally something hit me where I was like, oh, sometimes you kind of got to cut the grass to let it grow, right?
Yeah.
Like in this process, you're going to lose clients as you're training people up. You're going to lose that. And that's kind of just the cost of training and cost of doing business. But without that, like I cap at 90 to 100 deals a year. I could never do more than that. And so, now we're able to, do more than that with, more people.
Yeah. I mean, and that's so true, right? People learn through failure. And I think that's one of the hardest things for new entrepreneurs. We see that a lot with people that are in our scale community is they'll come in and they're like, man, I brought on a new acquisition manager and it was their first day. And man, they really screwed up this call. Like, yeah, it's their first day.
Exactly.
Like, do you remember your first call? The one that we reviewed on our training like 3 months ago? Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah.
Right. And so they just had the exact same experience that you did back then.
Yep.
So how do you recruit these agents? Like, what's the strategy? Because I mean, there are probably some bad apples out there. Like when you're looking to scale a team, is there specific things you're looking for to bring them on, or are you like, I can make anybody a good agent?
So yeah, we like to see if they're at this time, right? We were only working with investors, and so at that time, like you had to have an investment property, and so because of that criteria, most of our agents actually were just clients of mine that were excited about getting into it and they wanted to do it. Yeah. And so that's really how we started. There was that, and then it was mostly just through, Instagram or going on podcasts or whatever, people just hearing about us, and just it was all inbound stuff. Which again, I was fortunate enough to have somewhat of a platform to leverage. But yeah, I mean that's kind of where it was at that time.
Is there a reason why? So I'm trying to understand this because Mike and I, like you had mentioned, we're in a different part of the real estate space. So I don't know much about growing a brokerage or a team. Is there a reason why you would say no to people that want to be on your team?
The main thing before was if they didn't have an investment property, but I still wouldn't say no. I would just say get an investment property.
Well, because I mean, if like 300 people wanted to be agents under you and they all did one deal a year, you would be better off, right? I mean, is that how it works? Kind of. That's what I guess what I'm getting at.
Yeah, so that's how some teams run. Okay. And there's a very successful guy with our brokerage that I talked to, and he just said, just get a bunch of people, run them through like an evergreen type boot camp thing, and then like if you got 900 people each doing 1 or 2 deals a year, that's a lot of deals for you. And so just worry about recruiting. And so that was my mindset for a while. But I will say every agent that you onboard inevitably does take time. It does take effort. And so if they're not producing, you gotta, I mean, you kind of have to do them a favor and be like, you're not producing. You need to make an income for you and your family. Maybe real estate isn't for you. And so I've had a couple of those conversations, but what we've actually instilled was just a thing where if you don't do a deal in the last 3 months, you start paying like $100 a month to the team, and you kind of just kick yourself out. Like, no one wants to pay $100 a month for nothing.
Yeah. You self-select.
Yeah, I don't love being the bad guy, so that's kind of like my way of not being the bad guy. Maybe that's a wimpy move on my part, but I don't care about the $100 obviously, but I just want people to make decisions.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that is always like a knock that I've had on the realtor model, though. Is I mean, obviously you're approaching it a way where you want them to be successful, but like talking about the guy that it's like just recruit a bunch of agents. I mean, like because also too, I know there's brokerages that have these like desk fees and these different things, and like that's where they make a lot of their money. And then what they do is they incentivize people with being like, oh, well, after you sell 4 deals, like you get all the commissions. It's like, well, yeah, but you also know that people aren't going to necessarily do that. And so where they make all their money at the brokerage is as a, collecting those desk fees or collecting a little bit that they do get off the successful people. And it's like, I mean, that's where it turns to a pyramid scheme very quickly, because then they also have people underneath them that are, adding people on their downline. And the next thing you know, it's like, oh, look at the shape that this team's being built out. It's very literally a pyramid, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I guess you do not run like a similar model, or like, what does that look like? Because like, how do you encourage people to be good investor-friendly agents and not just come with you to take advantage of your own brand that you have?
So when we started, the people who started with me in the beginning, we'll just say are doing very well now because we had nothing really set up in place. We had cush leads coming in, like leads that were, I am pre-approved, ready to look at houses this weekend and put offers in, right? And those are the leads I was passing off, and we were getting a 50-50 cut.
Nice.
Any broker, any team today that passes a lead off like that would probably, like a team that's actually profitable, would probably get a 70-30 cut. And everybody was profitable in 2021, in 2020, 2021. And so, so those guys that kind of joined up then, right? There was nothing in our contract that says our leads are our leads. And if you depart with our leads and close on them, no, we still get paid for them. Nothing in the contract with that. So we had people come in on the team. They were here for a year and a half, did 20 deals with us, and then said, you know what, I don't think I need you guys anymore. I'm going to go off on my own with all of our clients. Right. Yeah. And like, I mean, that wasn't their fault. Like anybody in their right mind would do that. That's my fault. That's how we structured it. And so, that was like a massive, probably a 7-figure mistake. Right now in our contracts, we've kind of buttoned that up. And so, that's just some of the stuff that you learn as you go.
Yeah, that's tricky. And so, everyone was making money in 2021. How did all your stuff look going through kind of like the shifting in the market? Because this is a big thing on the wholesale investor side, is most companies disappeared, honestly, like on the direct to seller side, especially in 2022. Like our main competitor here in Spokane posted multi 7-figure losses and has, by all intents and purposes, fallen off the face of the earth. I know a lot of agents got out of the game, but you obviously sound like you did pretty well, or you even almost thrived since then.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, 2021 was our best year, and then we've gone down slightly in 2022 and in 2023. And so I'm not going to paint a picture of like we're this beautiful thing, but we didn't go down nearly as much as the market went down. And so that transition was tough though, because my buddy took out an SBA loan in like 2021 or maybe early 2022, and I was like, oh, I'll do that too. And so I took out this SBA loan and for like $350,000, and I was like, sweet, I'm going to hire some people and like we're going to really grow and scale, like mid 2022. And then like the interest rates dropped and all this stuff happened. I hired people, so the deals weren't coming through. My overhead was extremely high, and like we were running out of cash pretty dang quick. And so I kind of had, I talked to a lot of people. Mike, you were one of them. Dan, I might have talked to you too. And I probably talked to like 10 people that I knew were like some of who I thought were my closest friends. At least I call them my closest friends. I don't know if they called me their closest friends in return. But like they were kind of business minded. Sure. And the one general thing that everyone told me to look at was look at your overhead and I had, 4 people on staff when I really only needed 1.
Mm.
And so I went through this process of like, okay, I knew I had 4 and I knew I needed 1, but I actually didn't know which one. And so I like really went in and I evaluated every single person. And I mean, 2 of them were obviously not it, but I was really tossed up between these last 2, the girl that was with me the longest and knew the team inside and out, or the new team, or the new girl who showed a lot of promise, but like I didn't really know her. And so as I thought about it, became obvious to me that I had to get rid of the old girl and keep the new girl. And so it was a hard conversation because I was super close. Like everyone that's on my team, like we're like family, and so I had to let this girl go. And yeah, it was tough, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
That's part of being a business owner, entrepreneur, right? You have to make the right decision, because if you make the wrong decision, it affects the whole team, not just you. So you have to make, the hard decisions are sometimes the right decisions to make, and letting the person go that you don't want to, but you have to, is just part of it.
Absolutely. And we did it in a graceful way. Like, so we started it with, she was making, you're going to laugh when I tell you this. She was making $100,000. Yeah, probably like double what she should be making. And then I was like, okay, we're going to have to drop your salary. I felt bad firing her totally. So we dropped it to 60. And then I was like looking at her calendar and what she was doing. And I was like, we have to just let her go. And so I let her go, but I gave her like 6 weeks to find a new job. Like it wasn't like the typical 2 week. Like we really did let her out gracefully, because I'm also, while you can't hurt your business, I think there was like a moral like integrity kind of thing that you got to have, where it's like, just, I'm okay hurting myself to benefit somebody else if I told them something, even if it was like I wasn't even thinking about it. I think like holding up to your word, even if it hurts you, is extremely important, just in life and in business.
Right. Yeah. So with that, the question I have on that, like, what did you do to determine? You said you looked at her calendar. Was it like dollar productive things? Like, when I'm just kind of trying to understand why you would, for our listeners to understand, when you're in that tough situation with a staff member and you're making that choice, like what for you was it that she was doing that wasn't the right things?
It's more that she wasn't doing. So I kind of see what her tasks are in the day, and then I see how much time she's got to do them. And it was just like an insane amount of time. Yeah. And I would see like a 3-hour block for like a gym / massage session.
Sure.
And I would see a block for like probably 2 blocks a week, like something like that during the workday. Okay. I'm just like, we're going under. Like, what are you doing? Like
the shit's sinking and you're getting a massage.
Yeah. Like what's going on? And so it was kind of an obvious decision to do that. And then I found out later, which just confirmed my decision even more, is that the new girl I hired, her name is Julie, because she's awesome. So I'm happy to say her by name. She was like, yeah, I had all these ideas, but the other girl kept kind of just saying, oh, like, let's just put that on the back burner, or let's just kind of do that later. And she was like, what the heck? And so it became quite obvious, who to get rid of. And
it's confirmation when that happens, right? It's like the bloodbath afterwards. The employees are like, thank God this is what was going on, but I didn't want to tell you because I didn't want to be, that
they don't want to be a tattletale. Yeah, exactly.
Every time. Like we've had several high profile people in the business, like people that we brought on to be like, work directly with us, kind of like own different departments and things, whether it's on the creative side or it's on the real estate side over the past, couple of years. And so far we've had one that's really worked out. And he's now been with us for just over a year and a bit, but the other ones that we've brought on, like you have so much promise, you have so much direction. And then we do exactly what you're talking about. You go and you look at the time that they're spending doing things. You're going, do they even actually do a lot? And then you get rid of them. And the entire team has never failed. It goes, thank you. Jeez, this was such a problem. Like, how did you not see us? Like, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
Like tell me that it's an issue.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy. And it's funny too, because I did like, when I let this girl go, everyone thought like it was kind of a big deal. Cause like everyone's like, oh my gosh, the team is, we actually had a couple agents even leave because they thought the team was going under because of it. And then like, 6 months later, 8 months later, I was like, so now that, we're 6-8 months past, this girl leaving, like, how have we kind of held up to our promises? Have you noticed anything change? And they were just like, oh, I forgot she was even with us. Like everyone just laughed. Like it was like totally a thing. So, I would always say, if you're looking to cut expenses in times where things are tough, like you got to look at the recurring expenses. Like that's going to be the biggest thing you want to cut.
Let me ask you this. So your team is virtual 100%, right? So this employee was virtual, and that's Mike and I's team. And that can be challenging. Sometimes it maybe takes a little bit longer to understand where the bloat is in your business. Is there any advice you'd give to people dealing with that in a virtual environment of like, how can you not let that happen to you?
So what we do every day now is first thing in the morning, we have like a 5-minute meeting as to like what you're doing, what everyone's doing that day, and how can we help if you need anything. And so just kind of having that checklist of knowing what each person is doing and then actually seeing it, I think has been pivotal for us.
Right. And do you do like employee one-on-ones weekly, bi-weekly? What do you do with that?
We have like team meetings kind of for different things. Like one is like a creative marketing meeting. The other is like more of an ops meeting, etc. We don't really do one-on-ones. The girl that I work with like hates the cheesy one-on-one stuff.
Yeah.
And so we'll do a one-on-one like once a quarter, and I'll just give her props when she's doing good, and if she's doing bad, I just let her know right away. And so there's never any surprises on these things.
And you guys probably are working together a lot anyways throughout the day, in the week.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. That's it, and it's funny with the virtual businesses because like, I like kind of what you said there too, Craig, about how you do like what people prefer. I feel like so many people, they try to like treat every single person that comes into the business the same. And maybe that works if you're like a massive corporation and you're going to have no wiggle room, I guess. But like when you're a small business, like realistically under 50 people, you can have individual methods for how you train people, how you work with people, how you sort of set expectations. And that's like part of having human beings involved in anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it is important because like to know and like love and trust the person that like if you just got 2 or 3 employees or whatever, like that's kind of where we're at, and it's a place that I like to be. Like one is the VA, our VA, who is literally like our family. We treat him like family, and Julie, who is our person, like we treat her like family. And like retention is churn is one of the biggest expenses a company could have.
Yeah.
And by eliminating churn, by actually just treating people right and doing what they want, like Julie could go off and make more money somewhere else. She's got a master's degree in something. I don't know, but I know she's got like higher education. And she's like, yeah, but I love this job because I've got a lot of autonomy. You actually implement my ideas. We talk a lot, like, and I can work from home and like super flexible. So like that in itself probably saves me 20 to 30 grand in a year because I'm able to just because I'm able to have less meetings with her. Now, if she wasn't doing her work, different story. Right. Then we have weekly one-on-ones. So,
yeah, I like that. And it's just like, that's the advantage too. And people, it's hard to believe this, but money isn't the only benefit. It's a huge driver. It's probably the number one driver for why people do things and work for other people. But there's these other things like you just mentioned, like, oh, I can work from home. I like working with you, that people value those other ancillary benefits. But also just circling back on the conversation that we've had is like, I really like the idea of like meeting them where they're at and being the leader they need, because when you only have a handful of employees, you certainly can adapt and you certainly can give people a customized like experience as an employee. You don't have that 5,000 employee company where you have to have all these rules because the lawyers came in and said, this is how we're going to avoid getting sued.
Yeah.
Yep.
So cool. So, for people like us who are fully off market, most of the people that are in our scale community, I would say are in our audience, are going to be a lot of like heavily focused off market people. We do have a lot of agents as well that kind of dabble in that. But like, what's the best way for us to work like in parallel with you, being completely on the opposite end of the spectrum? Like if someone is our end and we wanted to have a part of our pipeline be investor friendly agents, what's the best way for us to establish a relationship like that?
Yeah. If you wanted to work out with us specifically, you can just either go to thefiteam.com or you can just hit me up on Instagram. I'm the Fi guy. But if you like how to actually work with investor friendly agents in your area and like how we kind of fit into the puzzle is, well, one, if you need a buyer, we've got a lot of buyers. 2, we're also buyers ourselves. So if you come to us with deals first, let us know. And 3, if you, a lot of agents, especially if you want to develop a relationship with them, if anyone listening like doesn't have their license or whatever, and you want to offer your sellers a second or third option, the listing option could be good. And if you get somebody that is okay doing volume, you list it with them at a pretty cheap rate, and you can kind of still keep your difference, and you just throw a % or whatever at the agent.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that's a good question as well. As when it comes to doing those referrals, this is a common question we get asked all the time when we get like retail leads that come through our marketing. For you as an agent that's obviously investor minded, you understand how sellers work. What do you want that handoff to look like? Because like more often than not, like what I see a lot of wholesalers want to do is they say, oh yeah, I'm going to refer you to my agent, and they give you the person's contact info, and the seller didn't actually want to talk to you. You didn't know that, or like you don't want to just like be calling a full cold lead. So what's the best way to sort of set that up?
The best way is to have like a warm introduction where like, Mike, if you've got a seller and that wants to list and you don't have your license, you just say, hey, totally understand that you want to get a full market value offer on your home. I have looped in our real estate agent, Craig, here on the deal. He's going to help you, button up some things, get a listing agreement signed, and we'll get you on market and get you the highest and best value. Right. And so like, just pretend like I'm on your team. They don't know that. Right. Like that would be like I think the warmest way to do it.
Right.
Sure.
And then you're warranted. Like if an agent isn't okay with I'm going to walk in and get a listing agreement signed, if they're not okay with 1% on that, like they should be, because the reason why agents get paid what they do is like 80% of the work is just getting a lead. All right. You've done 80% of it. So that's kind of, where my head is at with that too.
Yeah. Which makes sense. And that's like how people get up in arms about how much wholesalers get on assignment fees. It's like, well, what you didn't see is the tens of thousands of dollars that we spent generating this opportunity, and the 3 months worth of follow-up calls to figure out this person's situation, and then like the pre-probate sort of whatever that we had to tackle with the lawyers and family and everything else. Is like, yes, we do want to make $30,000 for that, because we have an incredible amount of overhead and time and structure that's gone into it. And it is the same for like good agents. I think the people, they've really had that skewed over the past like couple of years, like 2021 especially, where everyone and their mom and their mom's best friend and bridge club and whatever was like all agents, and they were all making money just because like everyone could sell anything. You could put a cardboard box from Lowe's on the corner and make a commission on that.
Absolutely.
But no, it's definitely important not to understate that value. And that makes sense too on the handoff, because I think what we see a lot is people, oh yeah, I have this retail lead. Here you go. My agent's going to just like flat cold call you tomorrow. Or like they say, like, here, call my agent. Or even worse, they like give the agent like a list of people that aren't necessarily warm leads, but they were just ones that they couldn't convert a wholesale deal on. And they say, here, go ahead and like work these. It's like, well, no shit, that's not going to amount to anything. And the agent isn't going to want to work very hard on that, because you just gave them a list of a bunch of random names and phone numbers with no context or expectations.
Yeah. And if you do that, just don't expect it to get like a super cheap, commission. Right. Like give us a cold list. Maybe we'll throw you a 25% referral fee, like on our commission, but we're not going to give you, cut you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, Mike and I have tried it every wrong way possible. And I do like the idea of like that warm pass off. And can you work with that agent and be, have them be prepared and understanding, like, hey, you are on my team. These are kind of what I would think the scripts are going to look like. Here's all the notes on the lead. And even to the point, if you can like text the guy and be like, hey, I got a lead, you want to do a hot transfer right now, and set it up super tight like that. I mean, that's not always possible, but like that to me is like the only and best way to really start converting these. Because Mike and I have had, I don't know what, Mike, 6 or 7 different agents we've worked with in our CRM, and telling them just to do cold follow-up, it doesn't work. They get burned out too easy.
Yeah. I mean, we know there's plenty of other lead genning that the agents can be doing on their own. They don't need your list of cold leads. So
exactly. I mean, and if they want cold leads too, they probably don't want cold leads that are crackheads. Like, let's be honest.
They want the easy cold leads to talk to. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's all good stuff, Craig. And then just one more thing really quick. So you said that you're in North Idaho, Denver, California, Southern California. What's Southern California market there in San Diego?
Yeah, San Diego. We got
Nice.
an agent down there, in kind of San Diego, Inland Empire, that kind of region.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So I'm sure anyone in those areas should definitely reach out to your team. Cool. All right. So we're going to start winding down here as we reach the end of the show. We have the same 3 questions that we ask everybody that comes on the show. First one that is the crowd favorite is, what is your craziest real estate investing story? And this can be big win, big loss, wild transaction, whatever you got.
Oh man, a couple are coming to mind. One would just take way too long to tell you, so I'll tell you the shorter one. On my 3rd house hack, I was doing a rehab to the basement. And, as you kind of get into this thing of real estate investing, doing deals, building business, you kind of start to gain a little bit more confidence. And so I was doing this rehab, and I was pretty dang cheap at the time. And so I was like, well, there's 2 rooms down here that aren't getting rehabbed. So I'm going to rent them out just super cheap, month to month. And then once it's done, I'm going to kick them out. And so I got 2 people in there month to month. And I didn't do background checks. I didn't do credit checks. I didn't do anything because I was like, oh, what's the worst that could happen? It's month to month. Well, go downstairs, and the contractor comes up and he's like, yo, there's some smell coming out of that bedroom, and I don't know what that is. Mind you, this is Denver, so they know what marijuana smells like, and they know what cigarettes smell like. And so we're like, okay. And so I went and I Googled their names, which you should probably do before you let them in, just for, warning. And they were on Larimer County's most wanted list for like drugs. Wow. And all that kind of stuff. And so I called the police, and I was like, I think there's someone doing crack in my basement. And because I was in an unincorporated county, the police couldn't help me out. Like, they wouldn't come.
What?
And I was like, what am I supposed to, like, the police aren't helping me out here? Like, what am I paying you for? Yeah. Where do our taxes go again? Anyway. And so then I was like, all right. So I got everybody out of the house. Luckily I had a buddy that lived not too far, like walking distance. So kind of went to my buddy's house for a bit, and I just said, hey, you guys have till the end of the week to get out. I'm going to give you all the rent you've paid me, which was like a month's worth, your security deposits, and $500 each to get out by the end of the week. And they did that. And so I kind of did like a cash for keys type thing, and it worked out. But yeah, it was kind of a sketchy situation.
Yeah, you had the county's most wanted crackheads living in your basement.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do? Post this on Craigslist, and that's how you found them? Because
I think it was Facebook Marketplace. Honestly, I don't remember though. It was like 5 years ago at this point. But yeah, that was one of the stories. But there's.
So what do you do now? I mean, what's the moral of the story here? How do you vet? Because you also have, like, I think in your primary, you still have like an ADU type situation, your Airbnb. Like, how do you vet people out so that they're not smoking crack in your house?
Yeah. So now, everyone's got to do like a real application, background check, credit check, employment verification. Like, there's the whole list that you've probably heard of a million times. Yeah, we do it. The girl that's living in our basement now is actually just a friend of my wife's. And so we didn't run that process on her, but
she's not a crackhead that you know of.
She's not a crackhead. We were kind of helping her out of a tougher situation.
Definitely doesn't give crackhead vibes. You're probably pretty safe.
Yeah, there's definitely a vibe of crackheads that you want to stay away from,
and a smell apparently,
and a smell. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Well, that's good. You got out of that one all right. I mean, I was half expecting you to say that when you went and asked me out, they just said no.
And they stole your like VCR or some shit.
Yeah, no, they stole my DVD player and my Sony Walkman.
Yeah,
I will. I mean, they're like, I don't know, there's 2 other stories that I could have told you, but they would take an hour. Yeah. Like, there's just so much crap that goes on.
We'll do it for
there's
another time.
Yeah.
So awesome. All right. Second question. What is the number one tip you have for a small time investor looking to take their business to the next level?
I would say, like, don't go through the phase of hiring and then taking it back yourself, and then hiring and then taking it back yourself if you can. Like, just know that when you make that first hire, it's going to be a bumpy road for like 3 to 6 months before you got them trained up. But the idea is that they become as good or better than you at what you were doing, and you can focus on those higher level things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great
Good
advice.
advice.
Yeah, it's a very relevant one, I think, for people that are early on as well, because it's so easy to get onto like the hire and fire train unnecessarily. It just creates so much stress for really no reason.
Yeah, and I think people think like when you hire somebody, that means you don't have to do work anymore, and so they expect that employee to be like, oh, they're just going to do it all. It's like, no, you now become the manager of that employee,
Yeah,
and the coach and the mentor.
There's a saying out there that I don't always take the advice of, but I should, where it's hire slow, fire fast. I'm sure you've heard of that,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so just do that.
Well, I tend to come from the opposite sort of standpoint. I don't say hire fast, fire slow, but I like to preach people, especially when they're trying to scale, that you got to hire fast and fire faster.
Yeah,
Because
no,
you also got to give people a shot though, right? Because I think there's this whole thing where people spend an incredible amount of time trying to find the perfect person. And really what you should look for, in my opinion, is like culture fit and like the willingness to learn and a legitimate interest in what you're doing. That is going to matter more and probably give you better results in the person that comes in and is fully qualified, who also, honestly, like the person that's super, super qualified, you're probably not going to be able to pay them enough for them to be interested when you're starting out. So you got to find someone that's willing to make a little bit less, put in the extra time and deal with some turbulence.
Yeah. One thing I'll add on to that too is, there's that perspective. My perspective was the not necessarily take a long time to find somebody, but make sure you really need somebody, like, especially if you're in the beginning stages, because you don't want to start operating at a loss or have too much overhead. But like, take a look at your time. I actually have my ops person right now doing for the last week, she's been documenting every 15 minutes of her time, what she's been doing.
Nice.
And
time
so,
study.
yeah, you do that time study and you figure out like, do it for yourself. What are you doing? And if you find that you're answering emails, booking calendars, like doing all this kind of stuff that you really like, super low dollar per hour activity, then you need to hire and hire fast. Right.
Yep.
But
you also might find like, hey, if I just optimize some of the stupid stuff I'm doing, like checking my email 23 times a day, you might feel a lot less stressed out. You might find, and I know Mike and I do time studies quite, every year. I just finished one, and you kind of see like, okay, I can bump this, or I've gotten better at this, or I need to shift this over. This really isn't something I need to be doing. How do I delegate that?
Yeah. Love
I
that.
think there's this thing where people that are, especially coming from corporate environments, they think that doing work is you sit down at your desk, you check your email, maybe you have like a Slack you check, you go and you look at Zillow, or you like tinker around with a spreadsheet for some reason. You decide you want some coffee, so you get up, you go get some more coffee, you come back, you check your email again, you get a phone call that you spend 30 minutes like having small talk, and you call it networking. Right. And they do this and they do that for months. And they're like, man, my business is really struggling. It's like, you're not freaking doing anything.
Yeah.
Like, but it's like, I understand you did that for 10 years as a corporate employee because you were trying to fill the time that they required you to be a button seat. But when you are an entrepreneur, you no longer get to do that.
Totally.
That's right.
Awesome. All right, Craig, last question. Where can people find you, follow you, and reach out to you?
You can go to thefiteam.com is our team page. If you want to just reach out to me personally, the FI guy, and we've got a podcast of our own for kind of earlier stage investors called Investify. So all those locations are great.
Yep. Both Dan and I have been on that show, and you do a really great job with Allie, who's also a previous guest that we've had on this show.
Yeah. Allie actually just decided to resign. So
what?
Sad news. I know.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
You can, everyone listening to this can go yell at her.
At Allie the agent on Instagram, go and tell her, how dare you abandon Craig?
Isn't that like her third podcast she runs? Is she on 3 different podcasts?
She's definitely on another one with Shelby, and she was just like, love you, Craig, but like the audience that I was catering was just not who she cared to reach to, and she was just like reevaluating some stuff at the end of the year, and was like, I mean, it made sense. Like, no hard feelings. I still love Allie, but it's fun to give her crap. So do it.
Do you have like a backup that you're prepared for?
Right now we've got our lead agent, Chad. He's kind of co-hosting it right now as a little trial period. We might bring a couple other people in to see how it does, and then
Nice.
we'll eventually keep it solid.
Cool. So if anybody's an aspiring podcaster, hit up Craig. He's currently desperate for a new co-host, but just so you know, he hires slow and he fires fast. So
yeah, there you go. So yeah, it'll take a while.
Yeah.
I'm working on Dan right now.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's the last thing he needs is more stuff to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Awesome.
Cool.
Well, Craig, man, really, really appreciate you coming on the show. And I've really enjoyed getting to know you and developing a friendship with you over the past couple of years too, man.
Sounds good. Likewise, guys.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Craig.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll talk soon.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Go and hit up Craig at all of his various places, the Fi Guy on Instagram and thefiteam.com. And yeah, he obviously is more than happy to engage with you. He's been out in the public sphere for a while, and this is what he does. So don't be a stranger. Hit him up. Let him know what you're doing. And if you are in the North Idaho, Denver, or Southern California markets, his team would love to take your referrals that you are getting off the market that you're running. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week.